However, because I was manning the 50 cal, I'm considered a target because I wasn't being a medic at that time. I actually, and with the whole idea for rules of engagement at the time, you have to see somebody actually shoot you before you can shoot back, because they would hide behind women and children or hide in like mosques or buildings. You couldn't see them. You couldn't just spray and pray. And I was driving one time and I was on the back. We're in this village and we're driving down the road. I actually not only heard a bullet come towards me, it was so close, I physically felt the air break in front of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Optimist podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drinkon, and today on the show we have with us Mr. Mike Monroe. Now, Mike, I have to tell you, you're actually the third Mike Monroe that I know in my world. Okay. But you're the most unique and different for a number of reasons. And I'm sure our audience is going to find out why. Team, get ready for a lively, engaged, storytelling, just very unique conversation with my new friend, Mike. So Mike, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Actually, I'm not the only Mike Monroe I know because I'm technically the second, but there was also a guy in a band, an 80s band. I think they were called Hanoi Rocks. His name was Michael Monroe.
Wow.
So I'm not even the most famous one with the name yet.
Well, I am hoping that today you will be able to help replace a memory and a stigma and a pain that I have attached to the other Mike Monroe, who was a dear, dear friend. And we played basketball together in high school. Mm-hmm. And we were up by 1 point with 7 seconds to go, inbounding under our own hoop. And I had just fouled out. So the ball gets inbounded to Mike, and he was subbing in for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. He gets the ball instantaneously, puts it up, and makes a layup in our basket for the other team, giving them the lead in the conference championship game.
No.
So with now like 4 seconds to go. This is in high school in the early 90s. So there's no 4.8 seconds. There's 4 seconds to go. I'm fouled out. My team is all just super ticked off because Mike scored for the other team. And I mean, he was pressure. He was nervous. He was just in, and it all happened. And that is the last memory I have of my other friend, Mike Monroe. So I'm hoping today, I mean, it's already been awesome talking to you in the pre-interview, so I'm looking forward to it. But you are replacing or building on top of a little bit of small trauma. With
if it
my
makes
other
you feel
buddy.
better, I'm horrible. If it makes you feel better, I'm horrible at basketball. So
I guess I am now too. My daughter, we just got her for her 9th birthday a basketball hoop in the driveway. So we've been playing basketball every day for like the last week and a half. So trying to practice a little bit. But let's get back to you. Let's give the audience just a little bit of a snapshot. If you could give us, let's just say 3 bullet points, Mike. What are 3 things to help set the context of who is speaking right now with Mike Monroe? So what are 3 things, Mike? We should know.
Well, I did 6.5 years in the Army. I joined right after 9/11. I was actually 19.
Okay.
And I actually turned 21 during my first deployment, so I couldn't celebrate properly. I had to wait. I moved to New York City literally with a $20 bill in my back pocket from, like, I was born and raised in small town Ohio. I actually still live in my hometown currently.
Nice.
I moved to New York City with literally a $20 bill in my back pocket because I wanted to be a pro wrestler. Because I'm a lifelong pro wrestling fan.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. And honestly, because I do content creating and stuff on Twitch, if I wouldn't have I didn't want to go to college, but my parents wanted me to because, degrees and everything. I wouldn't have found Twitch if I wouldn't have gone to college and basically not doing what I'm pursuing right now if it wasn't for going to college against my will, basically.
Got it. A lot to unpack here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd start with this. I'd start with you joined the military after 9/11. Can you talk a little bit about, what inspired you to do that and kind of your experience in joining and then what happened in your deployment?
Sure. Well, like everybody on both sides of my family has either been Army or Navy. Like my dad was Navy. My brother was Navy. I have an uncle that did it 20 years in the Navy. So I'm one of the rare Army ones, but it's mostly Army, Navy in our family. I remember it was actually on a Tuesday because my dad called and told us everything. I joined, it was September. It was a Tuesday. That Monday, I was in the recruiter's office, and literally Thanksgiving Day that year, I was at Fort Benning, Georgia, in basic training. My day 0 basically was Thanksgiving Day 2001.
Wow. What was that like your first week doing that?
It was a culture shock. Because I'm from, like I said, small town Ohio. I really didn't have a lot of experiences at that point. And the school I graduated from, I lived in the next town over, which had less than 1,000 people in it. So
wow.
I don't know how the world works because I was always a kid with no friends. I spent a lot of time in my room, video games, comic books. That was my life. Still is, but that was basically what kept me sane.
Yeah.
So we're going to put you in this situation where you're getting yelled at constantly and you're just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We were only supposed to be in, they called it the reception battalion, where you get all your shots, your physicals, they give you all your gear and everything. We're only supposed to be there 2 or 3 days. I got there right after they shut down the computers for Thanksgiving vacation. So I was there a week, just sitting there. And, at one point I called my mom before I'd even gone to my basic training unit. And I called my mom and I'm like, come get me. I'm done. I'm out.
Wow.
She's like, no, just stick it through. I'm like, no, I'm done. I can't handle and then we finally get to basic training. And you ever see the videos or the stories about the bus? They come by and they're shaking the bus and they're yelling at you.
Yeah.
100% that's what happened to me. You hear them get the off my bus. And it was just I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Okay. And so they're yelling at us and everything. And they had split us up into our company had split us up into 4 different platoons. These are you guys are going to be sleeping with and doing everything for the next few months. And it freaked me out because I'm watching another platoon in front of us yelling at the one guy. He's yelling at one of the guys, and this one of the drill sergeants. And they, you've seen those foldable field tables. They kind of just fold up, but you can if you're out in the field or whatever.
Yeah.
The drill sergeant lifts some of his fingers up and flips it. And it's all but empty because it's the concrete area right there. And all I hear is just this clanging of this woody concrete through my ears. I'm freaking the hell out. I don't know what's going on. They're like, oh, by the way, you have a PT test in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. 19. Basically, I was a year out of high school.
Yeah. Well, so you said you were in the military for 6 years, and so you obviously survived. So tell me about how long did it take to turn this small town kid from Ohio into a soldier in basic training until you got it and you were in?
I mean, I graduated in February because they let us a couple weeks for Christmas because I got there in November.
Okay.
They were like, we're going to be home for Christmas. I ain't training your ass. So they sent us home.
Okay.
In my uniform that had no ribbons on it, so I looked like I was walking around in a green polyester suit from the 70s. Also caught pink eye at some point because, 50 dudes in one room for 2 months and, men are dirty.
Yes.
And then I graduated in February.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, February of 2002. And then I was trained to be a medic. I was going to be a nurse. Okay. I failed the nursing school. That's a whole thing. That's about an 80% failure rate. I didn't finish it, but I went to school to become a medic. I was an actual frontline medic when I was deployed.
Wow.
Was at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio.
Okay.
We could take, it was close enough. We could get to downtown, the Riverwalk and this is, you're talking 2003 prices, less than $10 by taxi. Which, not an expensive taxi card. I actually almost met Kobe Bryant that time, too, when I was in AIT. Because the Lakers were playing the Spurs in the playoffs. Because, we're literally in San Antonio. And a bunch of us had just gone out. We went to Fuddruckers, the burger place. Fuddruckers.
Oh, Fuddruckers, yeah.
Yes, Fuddruckers. I love Fuddruckers. Oh, yeah. So we're sitting there. I'm playing the video games, and I'm just whatever. And I was a Pistons fan. Like I said, I'm from small town Ohio, Northwest
Benny the
Ohio.
Microwave, man. I love Benny Johnson back in the day.
Yeah, I would. But see, I was, when I first started watching the Pistons, you're talking Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, Joe Dumars back in the day. Yep. Yeah.
Dennis Rodman's still my all-time favorite basketball player.
Yep.
And I'm just playing a video game and I hear blah, blah, blah Lakers. And I go, man, the Lakers. What it was, somebody was coming up to, one of our buddies rushed into the restaurant. He's like, yo, Kobe Bryant's across the street. all I heard was wah, 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 Lakers, Kobe Bryant. Not that the fact that Kobe Bryant was literally across the street, and a bunch of my buddies went in, and I turned around and I go, where'd everybody go? He went up there, took pictures and signed autographs with every single person. So with me trying to be cool, missed the chance to meet Kobe Bryant, like in 2003.
Yeesh. Well, okay, so back to the original question. It took you from November Thanksgiving to February to go, and this is the basic training period. So you are through basic training in about 3 months. So
roughly,
the military machine can grind out a small town Ohio boy and turn him into a soldier in 3 months. So what happened in 90 days to really shift you and that kind of touched you or changed you, Mike?
Well, it was just basically that I'm here. Like, I was never the fastest or the strongest. I was never the top. I never graduated towards the top.
Yeah.
But I knew I always wanted to make people proud, because growing up, I was never the popular kid. We were poor. I was never good at sports. I never had good grades. So basically, every group in high school, I didn't fit in because I wasn't that group.
Okay.
So I was coming out of high school with nothing to show other than barely graduating high school, because I just never did homework. So I wanted to do something that was like, really, out of everybody, this is the dude that did this?
Wow. Yeah. Cool.
And like, I was scrawny in high school. I was 96 pounds as a freshman, literally. And I was probably $120 when I graduated.
Wow.
I mean, I'm a little heavier right now. But yeah, and I was just like, out of everybody, this should be the dude that didn't do it. The skinny, scrawny kid that barely graduated high school, that has no... I didn't go to college right out of high school. I didn't have, connections to get a good job right out of high school. I worked at Bob Evans for 2 weeks, and then I was a telemarketer 6 months before I got fired from there. About 6 months before I joined the Army. So wasn't like I had anything going on for me here that, home.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, let's move forward a little bit. I've really love to get into this professional wrestling arena somehow and talk about that, because I know that you're super passionate about it and it's easy for you, and I'd love to talk about that. Can you tee it up with, since we like to talk about things that are challenging that we've overcome, I'm really curious, like post 9/11 and post joining the military, what is a memory that you have, Mike, of something that was really hard for you? Something that's just challenging on your journey?
Afterwards, like the deployments were hard as hell, because I was then 6 months of my first unit, I was already deployed.
Okay.
So within less than 2 years, I was already deployed. From the time I got into the day one of basic training, with less than 2 years, I was already deployed.
Where are you deployed to, and what does that actually mean to those who aren't as familiar with deployment? What actually happened?
Sure, I was actually sent to Iraq twice.
Okay.
I did 2 year-long deployments within a 3-year period. I was there from 2003 to 2004, and then 2005 to 2006. Okay. And, when I got there, I was there at the very beginning of it. Like the initial push through, 2003.
Wow.
Yeah. Where there was times where, like, I can literally, I was doing... I specifically remember this. I was doing a patrol one time, and I was manning the 50 cal. And, according to Geneva conventions, medics are, non-targets. However, because I was manning the 50 cal, I'm considered a target because I wasn't being a medic at that time.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually, and with the high idea for rules of engagement at the time, you have to see somebody actually shoot you before you can shoot back, because they would hide behind women and children or hide in like mosques or buildings. You couldn't see them. You couldn't just spray and pray. And I was driving one time, and I was on the back. We're in this village, and we're driving down the road. I actually not only heard a bullet come towards me, it was so close, I physically felt the air break in front of me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm talking fractions of an inch, where I actually heard the phew, and I felt the air break, like probably, you can't see it on camera, but I'm showing you like on the camera, like probably, I don't even know if I can measure with my finger.
Like just in front of your nose, like skimming it, like
I felt the air across the bridge of my nose.
What happens in your brain and your body at that exact moment when that happens?
Instant adrenaline. I perked up and I'm just looking around. Like, obviously, I couldn't engage, first of all, because I didn't know where it was at. But it's just, I'm just looking, and I just hear the pew, and I'm just up, and I'm just scanning.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go from there. You can't see where it's at. You don't know where it's at. Something just literally skinned your nose and this close, like this close to...
A fraction of a second, like, later or sooner or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't even tell you if the helmet would have blocked it.
Has that moment, has that had an impact on you? Does that kind of reverberate in your mind at all?
That's not the moment that stuck. I mean, it's still stuck with me because obviously I'm telling you the story.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was a moment that stuck with me to the point that it's the reason I basically suffer from PTSD right now.
Is it okay for me to ask you about it? Or
yeah, no, like I'm open. I'm not. It's not gory or anything. I don't want to know like where your PG-13R or whatever your levels are at, but I can tell the story 100%.
Yeah, we'd love to, if whatever you're comfortable sharing, love to hear about it. Yeah,
I told you before, 100% open book.
Yeah.
We were doing. I was on like whoever was on ambulance patrol because I worked in an aid station with maybe 10 people at the most. It was a small aid station, and I was in the middle of the night. Hey, if you're on ambulance crew, you're all night. 24 hours a day. You're the ones that have to go. And they called us in the middle of the night. So I'm up and out because one of the vehicles in our unit, because I was attached to an artillery unit, the first deployment, got hit with an IED from underneath.
Oh.
And so we're coming in with the ambulance, trying to get as close as we can. And the whole inside of it's engulfed in flames.
Oh.
And it was so cool. We couldn't get probably maybe no more. We were like 10 feet back. We couldn't even get close. And like, you can't go in there because there's rounds cooking off because, you know, they're fully armed, gas. This thing could explode at any moment. And we were ready to go in because there was a guy, he was driving it. His seatbelt got stuck and he couldn't get out. And he ended up now not surviving because he couldn't get out of the vehicle. And we couldn't get in there and get him because once again, it's engulfed in flames. We couldn't get in there without, you know, you're just going to up the body count. And, you know, we had the memorial for him and everything.
Yeah.
And I remember going back. We're all celebrating. We got all this deployment money. I got myself a nice big TV. You know, we all went out drinking every night or whatever. I got cable for my barracks room because not many of us had cable.
Okay.
Like, look, I got cable. I got the money now. I'm getting cable.
Yeah.
I'm doing the whole hookup. Literally the night, and I remember it was HD cable. That was the big thing because you're talking 2004.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, when TVs were still heavy. This was a heavy TV.
That's my first 50-inch big TV. That was like $1,300. It was big.
Yeah, this was a flat. I bet I paid like $600 for mine. It was a flat TV. It was a big tube TV, but the screen was flat. I was like, oh, I'm looking good.
Heck yeah. Nice.
So I turn on they hook up the cable that night. I turn on the news. And they were talking to, like, I don't know if you're familiar with what a Gold Star family is.
Please elaborate for us. Yeah.
Okay, Blue Star, like my mom had Blue Star like in her window when I was deployed because it's like, hey, you know, I have a family member that's deployed.
Yes.
If they have a Gold Star, those are families of service members who don't come back.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, my mom had a Blue Star. Thankfully, she didn't have a Gold Star.
Yes.
So I'm watching the news and they're talking with the families of service members who didn't make it. They're making quilts and they're doing a lot of things to remember their family. They interviewed a woman and they showed a picture of her husband. Not only, 100%. This was the guy that didn't survive. And not only that, they showed his picture. The same picture they used at the memorial that I went to was the picture they showed on the news.
Oh.
And I just started hyperventilating right there in my barracks because I was like, I'm literally 10 feet away from this guy and I couldn't. I felt, obviously, it's not what happened, but I felt I'm the reason that, you know, these kids don't have a father and this woman doesn't have her husband. I felt like I was the reason.
Yeah.
Because I was right there and I couldn't stop him. But I was like, once again, you know, it's a thing.
I mean,
I was 21, so I had to go through that shit at 21 years old.
Dude, I can only imagine, and I'm sorry to hear that. And I mean, thank you for sharing. How does one go through that at such a young age and then live with it and start to process and recover from it? I mean,
I haven't.
Yeah. How do you deal with it and endure it now, Mike?
I really don't. Like, I've tried talking to like clinical help. I've run into problems like civilian or military clinical help. I just do. Like, basically it's up to me. And it's a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be 42 in like a month. So literally half my life I've had to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. And since this is the show where we share hope and that you can do it too, to all of our listeners out there, I can tell you that Mike, in our conversation beforehand and right now, this may not be easy to bear or endure or talk about. And Mike is really easy to talk to. Mm-hmm. And for me, I found him really easy to be around. So for anyone out there who's suffering in silence or just struggling with it, I mean, you can, be someone that's easy to be around. You can be someone that can recover from it, because it may be hard for Mike, but he's still, he's really easy to be around.
Yeah, like that's what it was always the thing, because I've always been a huge Robin Williams fan.
Yes.
And that was when he passed. That was one I took really hard. And I remember the quote he said, I'm kind of paraphrasing, I don't have it memorized, but it's basically like the people that laugh and smile the most are the ones that hurt the most, because they want other people to smile and laugh because they know how shitty they feel.
Yeah.
And they don't want people to feel the same way. So, they'd rather have other people make people smile and laugh so they don't have to go through what they're going through.
I wonder, I mean, I'm kind of going back in my own past now, because I'm one of those people that likes to have a smile, likes to laugh, likes to bring some joy around me. And I remember why. Growing up, I was bullied, and that was a way for me to cope, is to be a glue of sorts, or to be the friendly person. I mean, I definitely was the nerdy person. It wasn't until I grew bigger than everyone else, I'm 6'7" now, that it was more challenging being a big nerd before the growth spurt, and before I became like a sports guy. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, like the stuff I was made fun of for liking, in middle school and high school is the cool stuff now.
Yeah.
I was always into comic books and cartoons and obviously wrestling. And it's like, I remember in 7th grade, I got this, because we got new clothes every year for school. I got this shirt.
Okay.
I remember this to this day. I was a big Power Rangers fan as a kid, the G1 Power Rangers.
Okay, yes.
The black one was my favorite because my favorite color was black at the time. Plus, he had the axe that was also the gun. Like, when they put all their weapons together for the laser, the handle of the axe was the barrel.
Yes.
And I loved the Black Power Ranger. So I got this shirt, and I was, X-Men, because who doesn't like X-Men? X-Men are huge right now.
Yes, they are, and they're awesome.
I need to watch that new show, because I grew up with the cartoon as a kid. I've heard good things about it. But it was a shirt, because we were allowed to get, like, 2 new outfits for, like I said, we grew up with, like, no money. My dad worked in a factory. And even in the 90s, he worked in a factory and raised a family of 4 on a factory money, which is not a lot.
Much respect to him for that.
Yeah. So we never got new clothes, maybe Christmas, birthday, and school. Like, we were shopping at Goodwill when you used to got made fun of if you got shopped at Goodwill. It's like, it's cool too now. Like, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff I got made fun of as a kid is cool now, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, same here. Goodwill, thrift shop. My mom worked there. That's where she worked. So yeah, that's where we got the clothes. I'm with you, man.
Like, when we got new stuff, we only got new stuff for special occasions. And I got this shirt. It was Wolverine and Cyclops.
Oh yeah,
from X-Men.
Yeah,
and it was the 90s Cyclops. The only time Cyclops looked cool, when he had the visor, the hair sticking out, and the whole thing. The only time I thought Cyclops looked cool, but it was the 90s X-Men look. He looked cool in that cartoon. And Wolverine, who's one of my favorites, but he's not the favorite X-Men anymore. He's he's up there.
Who is the favorite? Like, who is your top 3 then? If he's in the top
3,
name him.
Wolverine isn't in the top 3. I don't have if I had to pick a favorite, it would be number 3 would be Colossus. I love Colossus.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
Number
Colossus.
2 would probably be Wolverine.
Okay.
And number 1, this is going to surprise a lot of people because he's not usually, A-Team X-Men.
Yeah.
Banshee. I love Banshee.
Wow. Okay.
So
Shock.
I'm only pissed that Banshee's only been in one movie.
Which one was Banshee in? Because I'm trying to think. I don't even remember.
First Class. He was in X-Men First Class.
Got it.
Yeah, he was in there, like Havoc was in, like, without getting too nerdy, but yeah, he was in X-Men First Class. So he's in the movies, he's in the universe somewhere, but Banshee also had a daughter who had the same powers. Her name was Siren with a Y. Yes. So there was Banshee and Siren. They was the same power. He was also Irish with red hair and he had an Irish accent. But like I said, I'm like the kid from Jerry Maguire. Did you know that the human brain is approximately 8 pounds? Like, that's how I learn and retain information. I call it Jeopardy smart because all the stuff that I know and the stuff I can spout off only works if I'm on Jeopardy, which I've tried.
Yeah.
It takes about 3 years. I looked at the process. It's about a 3-year process.
How would you do on Jeopardy if you went on Jeopardy today?
I honestly think I could hang.
Yeah?
Because I'll be sitting there like there's a pizza, I play Magic a lot, and I'll go to a pizza place across the street, and I'll sit there and have dinner or whatever, and they have Jeopardy on. I'm like this. 1742.
Yeah.
Giraffe.
Yeah.
Like, and it could be something like, how do you know this about this movie that you've never seen? It's just how I learn. I learn in trivia is how I absorb stuff. So excellent. I think I could hang in Jeopardy for them. I could at least do well. Like, do I think I could be a Ken Jennings? Probably not. But I think I could do well.
Okay. Well, okay. So top 3, Banshee, and then Wolverine and Colossus. By the way, Colossus in X2 when he turned into the metal dude and then just pushed the guy through the wall. That was like the coolest scene. So love that.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite X-Men movie or anything in the X-Men universe? Anything in the Marvel universe?
God. If you're going MCU,
whole Marvel.
Sure. Like I've seen everything from the first 3 phases. Phase 4 was kind of iffy for me. My favorite, if I had to pick 3 MCU movies, and I'm going just from Iron Man up to the second Spider-Man movie, technically was in Phase 3. The one they did after Endgame is Black Panther. The first Black Panther I thought was fantastic.
Super cool, yeah.
Endgame, just because all the time and like I don't care about spoilers. I stayed off of Twitter for 2 days. I went to go see Endgame that Thursday.
Okay.
I stayed off of, and I'm very active on Twitter.
Okay.
I stayed off of Twitter for 2 days so I didn't get spoiled. And then it's just, that one's a hard one to beat, number 1, because for Endgame, as good as it is, and Endgame's fantastic, you need to watch the other 24 movies to really understand how big Endgame really is.
Oh, yeah.
But my favorite Marvel movie, and I don't want to sound like the dude that everybody says is their favorite, Captain America Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU movie.
Huh.
That's my favorite one.
Interesting. Why? Why that of all of them?
I mean, I've always been, I'm a huge movie guy. If there's anything I like more than wrestling, it's movies, TV shows, that sort of thing. Okay. I love a good political thriller. I really do.
Oh, elaborate. What do you mean? What's good political thriller to you?
Oh, House of Cards, I thought was a great TV show.
Yes.
You get me a Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games. You get me, I don't know if you ever saw The Candidate with Robert Redford.
Of course.
Who was in Winter Soldier. So I'm like, oh, we got Robert Redford in here. Because he was the bad guy in Winter Soldier. People, spoiler alert for a 15-year-old movie. Or older. But what's the one him and Dustin Hoffman did? Watergate.
All the President's Men, or all
Thank you. All the President's Men.
All the King's Men. Yeah.
Yeah. You give me any kind of anything like that. I like a good thriller. Horror movies will always be my number 1. I am that guy. I love the more obscure, the better.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, then we'll switch to horror movies before we end on wrestling and just crush with wrestling for a while. So, talk horror movies. What has to be in a horror movie for it to even be in your universe of considered good?
Oh, well, I just literally watched one last night. I'm a big slasher movie fan.
Okay.
And I'm also a big advocate of So Bad It's Good. Because a movie can, the acting can be horrible, everything can be horrible, but if you enjoy it,
yes,
it's a great movie.
Yes,
but everything about it could be, ridiculously bad. The acting, they could be talking like this when we're, hey, excuse me, Sheriff, what can you tell us about the killings that just happened? I literally just watched one last night. I have Tubi. Like anybody that watches horror movies know, Tubi is a wealth of horror movies. Okay. You got the mainstream ones. I watched a Hammer movie from the 60s on there one time. Like they have horror, like the low budget shit that just came out.
Okay.
Halloween. You can watch
Halloween.
The first 3 or 4 Wishmasters were on there last night. You can watch I watched one off the name in the trailer. It's called the Bible Belt Slasher.
Ooh. That sounds like a horrible movie.
It's horrible. Like the acting is horrible. Like unless you really pay attention, you don't even know it's in the 80s because it's obviously they're just wearing wigs. They didn't have. I think they made it on $12,000, so it wasn't like they had the budget to dress like the outside sets. Which props to them for making a 2-hour movie for $12,000.
Yeah, it sounds like Howard Stern's at-home movie that he made during Private Parts. I mean, it just sounds like it's like a low-budget cheapie.
Like you can tell they put everybody in like mullet wigs and then they dress the sets with like tchotchkes from the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And at one point they just delves into a music video at some point too, and I'm just like, what?
Oh yeah, yeah. A music video they paid for it? They paid for like a main name song, or they just made up their own or something?
It was an original song, and they used the actors. It was almost like, oh, look, we have a keytar and a guitar, and all of a sudden we're watching MTV. Now we're in a music video for no reason.
Wow.
But here's the thing. The movie, you could tell that they tried to make a good movie.
Okay.
You can tell if you watch enough movies, you can tell when they're trying to make a bad movie on purpose.
Yes.
Those don't work. But this one, you can tell, hey, this is all we have. We're going to do the best we can with what we have.
So the Bible Belt Slasher.
Yeah. And it's as bad as it was, I had a blast watching it. I'm just like, oh, I'm riffing it myself. Nobody else. I'm just watching it by myself. And it's just like, oh, this movie's bad, but I so would watch it again.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so more of the mainstream genre that people have heard of, is it more like, are you into Scream or Friday the 13th or...
Oh, I've seen all of those.
Nightmare?
I've seen all the movies for all of those.
Yeah.
But Friday, when I first got into horror movies in high school, like we had a video store in my small town. So I was always renting cool, let me find a horror movie. I was a big Friday the 13th fan.
Heck yeah.
I've seen all of them. But probably if I had to pick a mainstream horror franchise that's my favorite, is Child's Play.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've seen all the movies. I've seen the first season of the show. I need to watch the other 2 seasons. Come on, bring it back for season 4, because, it's still in limbo if they're bringing it back. But I do need to watch the first season of the TV show was great. And it's actually in canon. Like, if you watch the movies and the TV show, everything's in canon with each other. It's one long... It's great. They actually end up in the White House in season 3.
What?
Like most of the season 3 takes place in the White House. Yeah, it's but yeah, and it's all in canon with the movies too. It's one whole.
Excellent. Well, I remember Jennifer Tilly because I thought she was hot. I kind of had a crush on her like so many years ago.
Watch the TV shows then.
Yes.
If you watch like I even like him, but nobody likes Seed of Chucky. I think Seed of Chucky's hilarious. And then they came out with Curse of Chucky. It was direct to DVD. And then Cult of Chucky came out after that, which then goes into Chucky, the TV show.
Okay.
Yeah. So all the movies feed into the TV show, so they're all connected.
Right, so anything around Child's Play is one of your favorite genres. I'm going to hit you with a different angle here, because growing up, the ones that were in my family that were the favorites were anything that had to do with monsters or some type of radioactive goo that made creatures bigger. So the first big scary one, there was 2 of them. One of them was called Empire of the Ants. This has got to be early 80s, where they're on some giant island and ants... They get some canisters of radioactive goo. They become giant. They take over the sugar factory, and that's where they have their base. And the survivors have got to go and blow up the sugar factory to destroy the ants. So that was one. And we loved that. I watched that a dozen times. But my favorite was the one that terrified the heck out of my mom. It was a movie called Squirm, where there were sucking giant leeches and worms and all kinds of under the ground creatures that when lightning hit the ground, it charged up the ground so much in this small town community that all the electricity is gone. All these creatures come out and they get bigger and they come in mass and they get in everything and they kill people. So Squirm was one that always had our family kind of heebie-jeebies. That's
what I love in the horror movies. It's always a small town, too.
Yeah.
It's never Chicago. It's never Seattle.
Yep.
It's always the small towns.
Yeah, there was a good one called Strange Invaders back in the early 80s that was a big in our family that I watched often. It gave me some nightmares.
Slugs was a movie about killer slugs.
Yes. That was a good one.
Night of the Lepus, the one with the killer bunny rabbits.
Oh, Night of the... I remember seeing the close-up of those bunnies. And
they used real rabbits to like small sets.
Yes.
Like the biggest name actor in that movie was DeForest Kelley, the guy that played Bones in the original Star Trek.
Wow, yes.
He was the name for that movie.
That's awesome.
I just watched one. I go to Cinema Wasteland. It's like a horror grindhouse drive-in movie type convention they do outside Cleveland. They do it twice a year. We try to go at least once a year.
Yeah.
And I went to go, literally, we drove across the state and back in one day, literally because I wanted to meet Lloyd Kaufman.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I have a picture. I have the pictures up on Twitter, and I actually have a signed DVD of him, like the movie that really got me into, like, let me look at other movies besides mainstream stuff. So I have the exact version I borrowed from somebody. I bought from the table and had him sign it right there. So I have the copy, the exact edition of the movie that got me into, like, lower budget and like lesser known horror, signed by the guy who directed the movie.
Yeah.
And I got a picture with him in like
cool.
life goals.
I got a picture with Shooter McGavin, the guy from Happy Gilmore. I was pretty fired up about that because I'm a golfer, and that was kind of cool.
He was in The Faculty too. If you want to talk about horror movies no one talks about.
Yeah, Faculty. He was
Elijah Wood's dad.
Yes.
Was that Elijah Wood? I mean, that was his dad.
Frodo, yeah.
Literally one of the most underrated horror movies ever, especially in the 90s.
Yes.
Fantastic movie.
Yes. Well,
Robert Patrick was in it too.
Yes.
Robert Patrick was a football coach.
God, he's good at everything, especially Terminator 2. I remember seeing him come out and just, that was good.
He learned actually how to shoot, like, because he wanted to be fully in character. He trained, I don't know how long it took him to learn how to shoot the gun without blinking. Because if you watch the movie, when he's shooting like the pistol, he doesn't blink.
Wow.
He trained himself how to do that without blinking because, like, hey, I'm a robot.
Wow.
Like, he learned how to do all that stuff he was doing to make it look like he wasn't breathing or blinking. He trained himself to do that so he could look like a robot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's a fantastic movie too.
Let's make a turn in our conversation because we've not paid homage to the place where you are the expert and you are the most passionate. And I want to turn to pro wrestling because it's
if you think I'm passionate about horror movies, I mean,
let's get to pro wrestling, man.
Sure.
I'd love to know about where do we even start? Where do you want to start with pro wrestling? We've got about 15 or 20 minutes to go. I just want to go deep into pro wrestling for a while. So. Well, where might we begin?
I grew up watching it since like 85. So, I mean, you're talking almost 39 years of me watching it.
Okay.
There's a lot to cover.
85. That's WrestleMania 1. That's Hulk Hogan in the cage against... No, wait.
That was
Hulk
2.
Hulk Hogan and the Sheik.
No, that was 84. No, Hulk Hogan and the Sheik was 84 when he won the title.
Yes.
Hogan and Bundy in the cage WrestleMania 2.
Yes.
That's when they did 3 cities in one day. It was New York, Chicago, and LA.
Yes.
And every single match on that, by the way, WrestleMania 2 is not good. There's not a good match on that card.
I remember seeing the fake gun go into the cage and shoot King Kong Bundy to give him maybe some blood or something. There's a little gun down there. If you look in the footage, I'm pretty sure they were aiming it at his face. I need to watch that again because
I don't remember that.
It looks like it's just it looks like an Apple Pencil, but it's black, and you can see it sticking into the cage. And right about that time, Bundy's down there, and you can see that I think it was his face that was the first part to get bloodied in that cage match with Hogan.
I know Hogan's very, very bad at hiding the fact that he's cutting himself. Just in general, he's not very good at it.
Yes.
But WrestleMania 1 was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper, yep. Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, yep. That's the first
Muhammad
match
Ali
I ever saw was Paul Orndorff wrestling somebody. It was between WrestleMania 2 and 3. That's when I started. That must have been 86-ish that I started watching wrestling when I was 9. And I was hooked, man. I was hooked.
I remember the first pay-per-view I ever watched live.
Yes.
Was Royal Rumble 92.
Ah, okay.
I watched it on pay-per-view. That was the one Ric Flair won. He came in at number 3 and won the whole thing. It's actually, to this day, considered one of the best Royal Rumble matches ever. Just off the names, you had Flair and Hogan and Piper. You had Sid Justice. You had The Undertaker. You had Million Dollar Man. Oh, God. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Like, it basically, like, you had everybody in this. And this is the one where Ric Flair came in at 3 and won the whole thing.
Yes. I believe that you actually were a professional wrestler, or you started a career as a wrestler. What did that look like when you were in this as
I trained. I would never consider myself an actual wrestler. I trained in it.
Yeah.
I moved to New York literally with a $20 bill in my back pocket.
Okay.
I was homeless within a month and a half. Literally, I lived in a homeless shelter for out of 3 years, I spent a year and a half in a homeless shelter.
Wow.
Still training, by the way. That's a whole other thing.
Wow.
I trained at shout out to House of Glory in New York City. Literally, it's like one of the biggest promotions in New York City right now.
Okay.
Like basically, they're getting Matt Riddle at their next show. I don't know if you're following. Like AJ Francis is going to be on the show.
Okay.
Their next show coming up. Matter of fact, if you guys watch AEW, Private Party came from that school.
Okay.
Like, I know those guys personally. Like, the reason I broke my finger by accident because we were just goofing around one time before training. We're just horsing around. Everybody hadn't shown up yet. And I was in there with one of the guys from Private Party, and he kicked me, and my hand got in the way, and I ended up fracturing and dislocating my finger.
Jeez.
Freak accident. It was nobody's fault, but it's just, yeah. Matter of fact, one of them, I was in he did a run-in after a match I did, so I actually took the first ever, and I have a picture of it on Facebook, the first 630 splash he ever did, like in a wrestling ring, like an actual wrestling ring.
Yeah.
I'm the one that took it. I have the picture to prove it. I took his first ever 630.
What's a 630 splash? Or what's it like to be the recipient of a 630 splash?
Honestly, it hurt like hell for like the first second. And then it was just like, from that impact, I was like, oh, this really hurts.
What is it?
And then
what's the move?
It's like if you've ever seen a 450 where they do like the flip off the top rope.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just an extra little half flip, like, and so he does the 450 and they'll land you like stomach to stomach. The 630 he gets a little extra like half spin, so it's back to chest instead of chest to chest.
Wow.
Yeah, I took his first ever one, by the way. I have picture proof.
Oh man.
So I did that for 2 out of the 3 years I was there, and I was not good. I honestly, if I look back on it, if I would have stayed as a manager, I probably would have been fine.
Yes. Okay.
Because I had a whole thing, like I was the only match I never wrestled. Well, no, I have one match. It was from a pre-show, but it's on YouTube. I did a couple battle royals because, students always do battle royals because that's what you do.
Okay.
I did one match for them. It was a pre-show. It was a six-man tag. I think it was 6-man.
Okay.
No, it was 8. It was an 8-man tag. And I was supposed to do some moves. The guy that was supposed to give me the move screwed it up. I landed how I was supposed to. But the guy doing the move, because, effed it up. So a guy that I was teaming with, who I didn't like in real life, but it's just like, we got to, fake it, tagged me with a blind tag, so I got to do none of the stuff I was planning because he thought I messed it up. Because he wanted to look good. Tagged me in on a blind tag, and I was like, I got a chance to do absolutely zero.
Ah.
Yeah. And I did one these were all in New York City. Matter of fact, they were either at the school or next door to the school. It was an indoor handball court next door.
Okay.
Because I was in Queens. I got to do one show in Connecticut. It was for an organization. They're no longer around. They were known as New England Frontier Wrestling. They're no longer around. Did a show in Connecticut because my trainers were there and we got to come in to do like a showcase match. It was a tag match and I was one of the managers.
Okay.
And we're going through, and they had this is how small wrestling is. I did a match, I did the match, and there was a women's match there.
Okay.
And one of the wrestlers, who, by the way, sweet and just as friendly as could be, went as Mercedes KV in the Independents. Nicest person in the world. Within 6 months to a year after I met her at this, she got signed to WWE and later became known as Sasha Banks.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Couldn't have been nicer, by the way. She couldn't have been a nicer person. And, she, like I said, she's Mercedes Moné in AEW and all over the world right now doing huge stuff. She was in The Mandalorian. She's doing all kinds of huge stuff now.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been nicer.
Super cool.
Yeah. So it's one of those things like we were talking about before the show. It's like, I don't know how I get in these situations. They just happen.
Well, can you talk a little bit about your days as a manager and who you may have been and just kind of your thoughts around how that may have played out for you? Because I know
because a lot of the things with wrestling, it's like, especially when you're a student, they tell you, your trainers tell you to do something, you just do it.
Okay.
So I was going to be a manager until I had an idea I actually had gear drawn up by a buddy of mine when I was going to be go for manager to wrestler. I had gear drawn up. I was going to be this cool cyber Japanese look to it. I had a trench coat, I had a mask and everything, just like an entrance mask. I would take off after once I got in, but I had face paint, like this whole cool idea. But I was a manager and I came out, I was known as, because I had a buddy of mine who wrestles in Florida right now.
Okay.
At the time, his first name in wrestling was Xavier. And I was like, hey, you help me out. I want to go as Xander X thing. This is kind of like my homage to you. The only you're going to get you mine. He's like, no, cool. Plus, Xander was also from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, once again, all my interests are coming together because I love that show.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was a wrestler I used to be a fan of, but there was, that whole situation a few years ago where all the wrestlers got in trouble for being jerks.
Okay, yeah.
It was called everybody got called out for being like scumbags or creeps or whatever.
Yeah.
He got caught up in that. I'm just like, great. Like one of the guys I looked up to, I went to his seminar. I had books. Like this was a guy that I took part of his last name because he took his nickname from another wrestler. So I did the same thing he did when he got his name,
Yes.
So my last name was Bushman, to kind of like paraphrase a part of his last name, wrestling last name. So my name was Xander Bushman. And I was a lawyer. I came out in a white shirt and bow tie. It was a clip-on bow tie. Suspenders. I bought a pair of slacks and actually took them to the same dry cleaners that I'm on my actual job as a security guard. The same dry cleaners I took my uniforms to get, pressed and looked everything. They altered them, so I made high water pants. And then I had pink dress socks underneath. Because I just thought looking like an idiot would just get them to boo me. And
people are going to remember it for sure. I'm already envisioning it, yes.
Yeah, and then I had a book, because I was supposed to be a lawyer. I have a law book, but actually what it was the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe in hardcover. I just took off the dust jacket because it was all black. Because I'm not spending a lot of money on a law book. Those things are not... I took business law in college. The textbook was $400, and we used half of it. But... So I would come out and that would be a whole thing. Everybody thought I was a preacher because they thought the book I was carrying was a Bible. And then I wanted to be like, I had this idea how I would go from being a manager to a wrestler. I had this whole storyline up in my head.
Yes.
Like I had this whole thing, like I was going to do this thing where and I actually wore this one time. I was like, hey, this is me now. I'm just going to be like, I was going to rip open my dress shirt.
Yes.
And I still had the t-shirt. It was the Incredible shirt from the Disney movie.
Yeah.
I was going to be like, just rip it off. And it was just going to be like, this is me now. I'm not the lawyer anymore. I'm a new guy. And it was going to be the Incredibles. And I wore it to the show that night. Just stuff never happened. But I had this whole storyline, like how I was a bad guy. I wanted to do this thing where I got no help from the good guys for the entire storyline. I would go and I had this idea for segments in my head where I would go into train and no one would train with me.
Yeah.
This whole thing, and I had this whole idea where I kept getting beat up by the guy, beat up. Like I was just getting demolished. And I would have had this idea to come up where I was slowly trying to get the respect from the guys that I was treating like crap, just real slow.
Yes.
Because I wanted to do that thing where I gradually came in as the underdog to have people cheer for me. The whole underdog thing. That's how I was going to do it. Because I'm not tall. I'm not tall like you. I'm 5'10".
Nice.
Okay. I've never been tall. I've never been the strongest or the fastest, but I could do the underdog thing.
Nice. Okay. Good.
You know, like how the whole Cody Rhodes thing, he came in as the underdog, or like Sami Zayn's a huge example. Like you want to talk about underdog, Sami Zayn's like a huge example of like the big underdog thing. Where gradually people start cheering for me. Maybe some of the guys would not hate me. And I would have this idea where it would all end with a last man standing match. And I'm getting beat. And I'm just keep coming up. I'm not giving up. And then you get maybe some of the good guys to come out to help me. I'm like, look, this dude is doing it for all his own. He came in from the bottom. He's underdog and he's earning it. Then they help me win.
Heck yeah.
That was this. I had a whole storyline.
That was the plan.
Yeah. And then like I changed my name. I was like, what would be a cool name? And the word Invictus came into my head. Because it's Latin, not only because of the movie, we were talking about this before the show, the movie.
Yeah.
It's Latin for like unbeatable, unconquerable. That's what it means. So I came up with Xander Invictus, and that's actually, I do a lot of content creating now with Twitch and YouTube and everything. That's my name. It's actually my wrestling name. And it just, the whole storyline, I had this all planned in my head. This was going to be awesome. We're going to cut promos. We're going to do this whole thing. It was going to be awesome. And then Hurricane Sandy hit. I lived in New York during Hurricane Sandy.
Ooh.
And, you know, the whole city got shut down. And I told you when I got kicked in the hand, I got, this was like, my one finger didn't heal right. It's still a little, like I'm showing in the camera, like you can tell where the finger didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost my job because they wouldn't let me work. Even though I stood as a security guard, they wouldn't let me work. I was liability. So I wasn't getting paid. So I ended up getting fired because I couldn't keep in contact with them because I didn't have a phone. And I just never got to do this whole storyline I had planned in my head. This whole underdog manager that got beat up, that became this whole underdog story that I was trying to do the whole Sami Zayn thing before Sami Zayn was a thing. Because I knew that, like, I'm not going to be, I'm not, like, I'm a smaller guy in wrestling. I would have been 5'10", probably 200 pounds. I was a small guy. So I know I'm not going to be, I'm not a big show. I'm not a Roman Reigns. I'm not a big dude. And I knew I wasn't a fast
small guy. The Dynamite Kid was a small guy, and he was pretty freaking awesome.
But, I knew that the underdog idea would have worked best for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I came up with this entire storyline, multiple shows, probably would have taken months. And I knew I could cut a promo. I was actually surprisingly decent with a promo because the few that I was actually able to do for wrestling school, I never wrote them down. I just did them.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to come across. Boom. And I would just do it one take.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
This is super cool. I'd love to keep going, and we're coming to the end of our time. So I'd love to first, how can we follow you, find out more about you? You mentioned a couple handles on X or on Twitch. So how do we follow you on Twitch and on Twitter? Yeah,
actually, it's just because of marketing. It's literally X, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all Xander Invictus.
Xander Invictus.
For all of them. I'm trying to use Instagram again. Twitter, I'm super active on. Twitch, YouTube, all my content is same name. Just look for the Rhino logo. For the Rhino logo, okay, Xander Invictus, and of course I'm talking to Mike Monroe. Okay, yeah, and then I also have a podcast. Yes, it's me and a friend of mine. We've been friends for like 10 years. We have a wrestling podcast. It's called Dropkicks and Attractions. It's basically the third format. It's basically we do a week by week. Wrestling that was on TV. Right now we're in 93. We started in 93 because we started with the first episode of Raw. We just talk about all the big wrestling shows. Like mainly it's WCW and WWF. We just talk about the main big TV shows, which right now is Raw and WCW Saturday Night. And then when we get to pay-per-views, The whole episode is just the pay-per-view because, they're bigger, more matches, longer matches.
Yeah.
And basically, I go off on tangents. That's what I'm known for.
Nerd alert. Dude, I love the tangents, man. I freaking love the tangents.
Did you know that Max Payne was one of the bad guys in the Substitute 3? No, true story, by the way. The wrestler Max Payne was one of the bad guy, one of the many bad guys in the Substitute Part 3.
Dude, when you said Max Payne, all I could think about is Mark Wahlberg jumping out of a window with giant R wings and a Rolex watch.
Fun fact, the wrestler sued Rockstar over the name.
Huh.
Because they said he stole his name.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so once again, tangents, random, obscure stuff. That's what I do.
Yes.
And basically, my co-host is... We're the same age, but I've been watching wrestling for I have a good 20 years more watching wrestling than he does. So a lot of this stuff, I may have not seen it before, but I know when it happens. He goes in, literally does not read spoilers or alerts. He goes in completely blind.
Oh, cool.
And we're getting ready to cover Fall Brawl in about a month because we do bi-weekly episodes now because I'm trying to launch a second podcast. He's trying to launch a second. We both work full-time. All the content we tried to do.
Okay. We
couldn't do this weekly and then try to get all other stuff. So we just went bi-weekly. So about a month, we're going to be doing Fall Brawl 93. For those that don't know, that's the wrestling debut of the Shockmaster. We've already done the infamous Shockmaster appearance.
Okay.
It was glorious.
Nice.
So we're in Shockmaster territory. So if it's one of those, if you know, you know. So basically we watch wrestling, talk about it, and I go off on tangents. I have, like I said, Jeopardy Smarts, I come up with random obscure stuff. And
yes.
Yeah, actually, the podcast also has a Twitter. It is capital D and capital A Podcast 1.
Okay.
It's got a DNA logo. That's why I named it.
Attractions.
I came up with the logo, the idea, because it was originally pop culture and wrestling. It was a whole thing. So I was like, a double helix. Cool, DNA. I came up with the acronym first and then named it after the acronym. So the logo and the acronym came before the name of the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm looking at it now and I can see, yes, I can see
I just posted.
Yes, I can see it on here.
I was like, cool. We were talking about how Ric Flair used to routinely go an hour every night. So what better way to show people that than Ric Flair versus Bruiser Brody from St. Louis in 1982, the year I was born.
Excellent. Yes. I'm looking
at
it right now.
I'm a big Bruiser Brody fan. I really am. So I was like, why not? One of my favorites, and Ric Flair going for an hour. Even though it's a match that's in St. Louis, but the commentary is Japanese, so it's from some Japanese show.
Okay.
So it's a match in St. Louis with Japanese commentary. So,
well, Mike, I hate to cut it short, but it's time to wrap it up, brother. We know where to find you now on Twitch and on Twitter, and we know your podcast, Dropkicks and Attractions. So everyone check that out. I've got a question for you. If you could think back to what you would like your intro song to be as a manager or as a wrestler, what would be your intro song coming into the ring?
Actually, now I kind of want to use, because I just saw them last week, or about 2 weeks ago, I went to go see Halocene, who's I'm a big fan of. I'm a big metalcore fan, and if people that see Halocene, one of their original songs is actually Warrior State of Mind. It's my favorite song of theirs.
Warrior State of Mind.
By Halocene, yeah. They're fantastic.
Okay.
I finally got a chance to see them about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Awesome. Okay. Well, final question, Mike, and I will give the wrap up to you here. We're on the Eternal Optimist podcast, and if I asked you, what does it mean being an eternal optimist? What does that mean to you?
That the way I look at it, being an eternal optimist, is that even if you've been given a lot of bad things in life, which we all have, I know we've all gone through a lot of hardships or whatever, just the fact that you know that you've gone past those, and you know that there's always something good on the other side of, a bad situation. You can always know that regardless of whether it's how bad it is, you know that there's something good on the other side. There's always something. You got to have good with the bad. So you can always know that even if you go through bad stuff or hardships, there's always something positive on the other side of it.